Alright guys, today we're going to talk a little bit about the starter setup on these 1970 to 1980 Ironhead Sportsters. I got the starter right here, got the starter solenoid right here, and they're both attached to the housing that bolts up by 2 bolts on the other side of the engine. So I got one that's bolted on here. Show you a little bit about this. There's supposed to be a little brass washer that goes in between where this shaft mounts onto the primary cover into this hole right there. This is a XLCH. This was a kickstart engine only that I put an electric start setup on it by just removing this block off plate and welding a ring gear onto the back of the clutch there. This is a Hitachi Starter instead of the Prestolite that's on that other one. Starter solenoid. I'll show you a little bit how this works. When you hit the start button and give power here, that'll pull this in, and well, I'll show you another little setup over here. Show you it on this one. That'll pull this in and send juice over here to turn this gear, which turns this. I'll show you. This will push out, grab a hold of the ring gear on your clutch, and this rotates once that's out like this. You can see that little gear moving, and will turn your engine over. Now this is the starter Bendix right here. It's supposed to free spin this way and not the other way. Those do go out, and it'll work, it'll kind of whine when you go to start it. This here will pop out, and this will it'll free spin, so it's not turning the clutch and your engine over or anything. Now on the other end of this shaft here, you see that little thing right there? There's a little needle bearing there that goes in the housing, and I'm going to show you how to replace that. Alright, I've removed these 2 long bolts that mount the starter to the back of the starter housing here, and those 2 holes. Now you can see I got the whole area of that bearing exposed, and you got to pull the starter off, that way you can knock it out through that way. So now what I'm going to have to do, you have to take this screw out, and you can see in the housing here, it's got this little nick, a couple little nicks around it, and they'll do that way that'll line up in the groove of the screw so it can't back itself out. So you might have to get a screwdriver and kind of hit it wherever this part right there might be hanging up, and so you can get this broke free. So I'll loosen this up. This is going to be a 2-handed operation because on the back side of here there's another spring. So I'm going to put this on the tripod and give you a little rundown. Alright, I'll hold a little pressure here and remove this bolt the rest of the way. Put it to the side, and this whole little arm here will come out. So I'll show you what we got here. Oop, back her out. Alright, now usually right here where that's connected at, there's a little cup and a pin where it holds. I'll show you real quick just so I don't confuse you. It'll be like that. There's the shaft, here's a spring, and this is just a little cup right here with a pin. And to remove that, you push this cup in and just pop the pin up or down, and that'll relieve the pressure off that spring, so you can pull that shaft through the little bracket there. So that's why this is like that. That cup and pin isn't on it. So this bracket comes off. The back side of here. Here's that other spring I was talking about. Goes into the solenoid there. That spring goes in right there. And that exposes us to the bearing there. Now, this is the starter drive clutch, and this is what goes out sometimes, and you'll need to have to replace it. And if you ever need to do anything with this shaft here, this is a reverse thread. This little nut on here, just flat on two sides. That's a reverse thread, so it ain't lefty-loosey. It's the opposite of what you'd think it would be, because I've gotten these before and the shaft is snapped where somebody's put an impact on here or something and broke it off, not knowing. So, show you what I got here. Put this to the side, and now that exposes me to the bearing there that I'm going to replace. I got the new one here. I got this at the Harley dealership. Parts Unlimited bearing. Part number BAM 810. There's my new bearing, and I'm going to show you how to get that one out, and we'll get the new one installed and get her all back together. Alright guys, I got my starter housing here. I'm going to set it on the vise here. I got a little gap in between. Need just some kind of a punch. I got a little extension here, 1/4 inch extension. It fits in there nice. Set that in there, and I'll just hit it a couple times. Knock the old one out. Got it right here. Set it to the side. I'll flip the starter housing over. I got my new bearing right here. Set it in there. I got a brass hammer here, or you can get something, you know, kind of soft. Just and make sure you hit it in even. Alright, got my new bearing in. So, start throwing everything else back together. Alright, I ran these 2 long bolts of the starter back into the housing, which you see blocks off that bearing from coming out and keeping it nice and tight. Here's the other end of the starter. I put a dab of grease in there. I'll start putting the rest of this back together. Throw the gear in. See, it lines up with the starter. Run this shaft in. And then I'll start putting the rest of this in. Throw the spring in there. Put this in. And with this, fish it over to this side, get it in that groove, put that in. Another two-handed operation. I'll push this in, and hey, looky there. Tighten that bolt back up. Put the spring on, and then if I had that cup and washer, I'd put that on right in there too. So there it is back together. The shaft will be tighter once I get the rest of this all tightened up, and should be good to go. So there's a little rundown on these starter housings, a little bit about them, replacing that little needle bearing in there. there's that part number again. So work, but a little bit of stuff for you. Thanks for watching, guys.